Hey listeners, thank you so much for listening to HRN. We want to make your experience as a listener even better, and to help us do that, we'd love your input on our audience survey. It'll only take a few minutes, and by completing it, you can enter to win a $250 gift card from Goldbelly. Visit heritageradionetwork.org/survey to take the survey and to help us keep growing and improving. That's heritageradionetwork.org/survey. Thanks for your support.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Hey everyone, Greg Benson here, and if you're a regular listener of The Speakeasy, you probably know by now that I've been working to bring 100% pure, actually good-tasting agave nectar to the United States for a minute. But I wanted to give you a bit of an update. I actually got to travel to the farm where these amazing plants have been growing for decades, and it was just a genuinely moving experience. I got to see these agave in their natural habitat and see what it means to Rogelio, the farmer, to be able to care for the descendants of the same agave that his grandfather was growing almost a full century ago. That's why I'm proud to announce Quixote Imports, a new venture that's dedicated to preserving these agave and, yes, still bringing in the same fantastic, earthy, lightly fruity agave nectar that's going to make you wonder why you've been wasting your time with the crap at the grocery store. Plus, our fans here at the Speakeasy can get free shipping at checkout with promo code SPEAKEASY, so don't wait. Head on over to quixoteimports.com and see what agave nectar is actually supposed to taste like, and use promo code SPEAKEASY for free shipping. Salud.
So you don't shun the devil with your rock and roll load. Knows that country music's gonna save your soul. The devil runs his groove in them rhythm and blues that sing. It's gonna get you sun in the air.
Welcome back to the Speakeasy. I'm Greg Benson here with a special bonus episode. As you may have heard, if you've been anywhere near a phone or a computer or another person recently, there is a pretty big hurricane that passed through the southeastern United States. Actually, two pretty big hurricanes, but one of them was particularly devastating to a town that's near and dear to my heart, Asheville, North Carolina. And so I wanted to have someone on to talk about not only what's been happening on the ground there, but how it's been affecting people in our field. So joining us for a special bonus edition of the Speakeasy, we have Danny Boyer, who is a manager at Crow Quill in Asheville. So first of all, Danny, how are you doing, man? How are you holding up?
Holding up, doing all right. Luckily the community here is awesome, so that's helped.
Well, that's one thing that I really loved about the times that I visited Asheville it does seem like the bar community there is just such a tight knit and friendly and just very like neighborly one. Like I kind of love small big cities like
Yes.
Asheville because you do get that sense of community. And another thing that I love about Asheville is it has what was advertised on its website as the only craft beer bar and gas station in the United States. So
Yeah,
love
that's
that
the thing
about your town.
Yeah, that is the thing for sure.
I still remember sitting out in front of that and watching people. Like I was sitting there and having a beer, and someone came up to me and they're like, "Excuse me, man, do you have a light?" And I was like, "No, I don't smoke. And also, this is a gas station."
I go there semi-frequently, and, I quit smoking a couple years back, but, if I'm drinking every once in a while, it's like it doesn't count, right?
Yeah.
It still freaks me out, too.
Well, like, you don't think about it because, like, you're not there. Like, if I was pumping gas and someone came up to me and was like, "Do you have a light?" I'd be like, "Get the fuck away from me. What's wrong with you?" But, like,
Right.
you don't, when you're engaged in the act of drinking a beer and someone's like, "Hey, man, can I bum a cigarette off of you?" You don't think about it for a second until you're like, wait a minute. This feels like a terrible idea.
So I'm in a band. I've actually played a show at the gas station bar.
I didn't go too far deep into it. There's a venue in there as well as
No,
a gas
but
station
we
and
like
craft beer
kind of
bar.
made one happen. Like the folks that work there are just like homies, and they were like, you know what, we should have a show. And they just like set up a PA, set up a stage for us, and we played at the gas station bar.
So not even like in the back of the gas station, like out front where people were pumping gas
It
ostensibly.
was like towards the side because it kind of wraps around,
Yeah.
So like if you were pumping gas, you would definitely hear it.
That sounds like, I live in New York, so in addition to not smoking very much, I also don't drive very much, but like
Sure.
when I do, that seems like that would make the act of getting gasoline infinitely more pleasant if I got like a little live show
For
along
sure,
with
yeah,
it.
no, there's a lot of businesses here that are not set up to be venues have, done shows. It's kind of awesome.
Well, and that's kind of what's cool about the spirit of Asheville is that it has that kind of, DIY kind of like punky aesthetic that I really enjoyed about my hometown of Washington D.C. that I think it still has a little bit around the edges. But
Sure.
talk to me a little bit about the spot where you work, about Crow and Quill, and give me
Yeah.
some backstory on where that came from.
Yeah, speaking of like punky DIY stuff, yeah. So Crow Quill, we're in downtown Asheville. We call ourselves a cocktail and whiskey bar. Um, the things that we're most known for are a really weird cocktail program. We tend to focus on just like using bizarre ingredients that you would never think about, but making them palatable. And then we have a little over 1,200 bottles of spirit. So that's like the big thing, is that we have the largest regional selection of spirits, which is weird in North Carolina because North Carolina liquor laws are pretty strict. But it was just 10 years of collecting. But yeah, so we've been open for 10 years. We opened in April of 2014. The owner, Casey, it was their first bar. And they, grew up in North Carolina, lived in Nashville for a long time, left for a bit, and then came back and opened up the Crow and Quill. But yeah, I mean, it just started out as a locals joint. We're queer owned and operated. Just a bunch of like punks and goths who really like booze, who,
Hell yeah.
got together to make this thing happen. And when we first opened, it was definitely like we mostly catered to service industry folks. Like it was just, after everyone got off their shift, that's where they went. And over the years, people started to find out about it. Obviously, Asheville has a huge tourism business. And, as tourists started to find out about the bar, we kind of kept pivoting. And this year, a couple months ago, we got voted in USA Today as one of the top 21 bars, I think it was, in the nation. And that
Damn.
obviously like picked up, a lot of the tourism. But right now, it's, weekends, we have live music, we have jazz, burlesque shows, honky tonk, stuff like that. And that's, we get a lot of tourists. And then on the weekdays, we still have our regulars. We still have our service industry folk that just come in on their particular day and hang out with their bartender. And yeah, we kind of balance the two pretty well.
So that's kind of, I'm glad to hear that you've sort of got a division of labor there, because one thing that always like, I don't like this facet of myself, because whenever a bar that I really love winds up on some like top 20 in America list, or like wins a James Beard Award or some nonsense
Sure.
like that, like I'm always like extremely happy for them, obviously, because like it's hard fucking work to make it in this industry. But
For sure.
there's a tiny, deeply petty part of me that's like, oh man, now like the normies are gonna find out about this place and fuck up what's cool about it. So
No, I
like,
mean,
what
no, I
has
get
that
that.
process been like?
So it's funny because so the particular street that we're on in downtown Asheville it's North Lexington, and I like to call North Lexington like the last holdout in downtown of like the weirdos. Like if you go on any street in downtown Asheville, you're gonna see like, oh, it's modern Asheville. There's all these fancy restaurants. There's, like you said, there's like, this restaurant was voted by James Beard, and like, all this stuff like. And then you get to North Lexington. It's right before you hit the bridge for the highway that goes over. And it's us, it's Lazy Diamond, it's Static Age, Broadway's, which is like the most OG Asheville locals dive you could think of, Tiger Mountain. And it's definitely, it feels like old Asheville on that block. And us and all the businesses there are like super tight. We're all friends, we all hang out. And so it's not a street that people would end up on if they just came to Asheville and were like, where do I go? What's cool? But there's really cool places on that block, so we do get tourists. And for anyone that's not been to the Crow and Quill, we don't advertise very much, and we also don't advertise on the the front face of the business. It's kind of hidden.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no sign.
It did take me a second to find your entrance when I tried to go the first time.
A lot of the times when people come in for the first time, they're like, I walked up and down the block like 3 times and went to like 3 other bars to figure out where this was. So like, I think that part of that is almost an appeal. Like people do like that element of it, but it's not something that you would just like, stumble upon. You kind of have to like figure it out.
Sure, yeah. No, everybody loves knowing like the secret spot, being like I know a place, follow me. Like that's just a universally like cool thing that is just generally a thing people like to do. And so I kind of like, I don't know, what in your opinion is the proper balance between that and acknowledging that, nothing gold can stay, and time moves on, progress moves on, and sort of adapting to, because you've been around for 10 years at this point, so clearly you've adapted and grown and seen the city around you change. Like what is your sort of guiding philosophy for balancing, like, we want to be kind of like grungy and punk and DIY and off the beaten path, but we also want to be realistic and be a part of our community as it changes, and also, I assume, make money.
Yes, yeah, that's a big thing. Starting out as being like this kind of like the Casey really started the bar just to hang out with friends, right? Like it was like, this is something I do, this is my career, let's start a place where all my friends can hang out. And pivoting and like, gaining in popularity, having people find out about it. I think for us, the really important thing was just not to like lose ourselves in that. Because like, it's pretty easy to be like, well, I'm making money now. Like we're all gonna wear ties and aprons and, get really, really fancy and start using tweezers a lot. And not that, we don't do that, but I think the magic
but there's a douchey way to use tweezers, and then there's like a utilitarian way to use tweezers, and we all know the difference when we see it.
Yeah. No, I when I see someone smoking a Manhattan and they're throwing I don't want to name the whiskey, but like it's not very good. I'm like, you kind of wasted that drink, I don't want to piss any of my reps off, but with the Crow Quill, like I think the magic that I've recognized of that place is that we just like all of the growth has been very organic. We haven't forced any of it. Even if you go in there, like 1,200 bottles on the wall, and then you see that there's all these dried flowers and like antique furniture, and we have a whole altar. All of that was organically grown. All of the dried flowers started out because we would keep flowers at the check-in desk at the door, and then our regulars started bringing bouquets of flowers in for us. So whenever they get old, we just started hanging them up. So it's not like, we didn't hang all these flowers the minute we opened. It's just like over the years, we've just been collecting. And I mean, it almost is sort of dive bar-y, right? You just collect stuff and put it up on the walls.
Yeah. And the thing that like made its way into my heart about your space is that it doesn't feel forced. It didn't feel like you were like, you opened and then all of that shit was there on day one. It feels accumulated in kind of the same way that you walk into like an old thrift store and you're like, this place is either owned by like an OG hippie or like an ancient witch that's like 900 years old.
Totally.
And half of these items are cursed.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, that aspect of it is just like, we've just kind of gone with the flow with the evolution of the bar and just, let the winds take us where it needs to go. And then, as far as our drinks too, with the cocktail program, the whole thing that it started out with it just being like, how can we make a drink sound as weird as possible, but also make it palatable? And we've definitely kept up with that. Some of the weirdest cocktails I've ever made in my life have gone on the menu at the Crow Quill, but with more popularity, I will say we're a little bit more aware of, the general public's flavor profile. There are a couple of drinks that we used to have on the menu that are now like secret menu items, because I'm just like, wow, I'm finding this drink not finished a lot. We should probably think about that, I don't know. I think it's just not forcing anything is really the key. Just like kind of letting your personality shine, kind of letting you know, your regulars and your guests kind of lead you to what can make you successful.
Yeah, I have to ask, what were some of the weirdest ones that you put on the menu? I'm very
Sure,
curious because
yeah.
it felt like I saw in your eyes you had a specific example there, and I want to hear what it
I've
is.
got a couple, yeah. So the weirdest one I ever put on the menu was called the Kinoko Prefecture. It was a sesame oil fat washed cognac with a shiitake mushroom reduction syrup.
Oh shit, I think I
And
tried that.
maybe it was on for a season. It had a ume plum vinegar. For me, like personally, I really like trying to make drinks without hard citrus in them and using alternatives for the acidity element in cocktails. So I use a lot of ume plum vinegar or like shrubs, stuff like that. So that one had an ume plum vinegar in it. It was savory, slightly sweet. It was a really fun one, but I think ultimately the thing that made us go, hey, we can't, I don't know if we can bring this one back, is when you were making the shiitake mushroom reduction syrup, it made the entire bar smell like ramen. It was really bizarre. But that was a weird fun one. We used to, one of the secret menu items that was one of the drinks we had when we opened, and it stayed for a long time, and then we were like, all right, we gotta, it was called the Saragossa, named after General Saragossa. That one had a chipotle pepper infused mezcal that was very spicy, and molasses, grapefruit, lime, salt, and it's just super spicy, super savory. Honestly, one of my favorite drinks, but that was the one that I kept finding that people had not finished. And
Hmm.
I tried everything to tell people how spicy it was, like put it on the menu, like, hey, this is really spicy. When people ordered it, tell them like, hey, just so you know, this is really spicy. But no matter what you say, people aren't going to believe it. They're going to try what they want to try.
Mm-hmm.
And so ultimately it's become a secret menu item, but there's still regulars that order it all the time.
Well, now I know for the next time I pop in.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. No, it's a good one. It's a good one.
so I hate to use the segue, but you talked about going where the wind takes you.
Sure.
Based on that,
Yes.
uh, you all had a bit of a weather event a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
How? Just tell me first of all, how are you doing, man? How are you doing, and how is the bar staff doing?
So one thing I can say for sure is like the bar and all the staff are good. Like we all live in different parts of town. It was really scary for the first couple of days, but we've all been in touch. We've got to hang out this past Wednesday. Everyone's doing really as good as we can do. Um Honestly, it's been crazy, it's rough, it's traumatic. It's something that we never contemplated could happen in Asheville. Asheville's always been touted as this climate haven. Like I grew up in Asheville, and I remember everyone being like, "Well, the mountains will protect us from everything." Like we're not going to get anything. It's fine. It's fine. Like we don't get tornadoes. We don't get crazy storms like that or whatever. And then this happened, and it's weird. It's really weird. Um, yeah, I mean, I can walk you through, kind of the steps of how this went if you want. It's bizarre.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if that's not going to be like re-traumatizing for you,
No,
yeah, I
no,
definitely
no.
would want to hear, what y'all have been through and maybe where you want to go next.
Sure, yeah. Basically, for my perspective and the bar's perspective, the area the that the Crow Quill's in downtown is prone to flooding. So we had
Mm.
actually had a flood a couple months ago, just due to like building maintenance and stuff that needed to be done. So in a weird way, we were lucky because that flood happened a couple months ago. We actually kind of prepared for this, which is why luckily we're okay. Um, but I guess the last Wednesday of September, we had crazy rain, and it was before the hurricane even hit. And I had trouble driving around town trying to do stuff, so I actually called Casey, the owner, and I was like, "Listen, I'm not comfortable. I think we need to shut the bar down." And they were like, "Absolutely." So I talked to the staff. We shut down the bar, and then because we're prone to flooding, we were like, "All right, we're prepping." So we picked up all the furniture, picked up the rugs, sandbagged the whole bar and everything. But yeah, Thursday night into Friday is when the hurricane hit, and I remember watching the satellite imagery for it and just being like, I know it's coming straight for us. And a lot of people kept being like, that's not going to happen. Like, that doesn't happen here, you know? And unfortunately, I feel like that's why it hits so hard, is just because infrastructure, individuals, businesses, like so many people were unprepared, just like being like, okay, like it's, you know, it's going to rain. It's going to rain hard, whatever. We've dealt with rain. Um, so hit us really hard. Asheville is in a mountain valley and it's surrounded by waterways. Like we have the French Broad river that goes straight through, like through the middle of town. Swananoa River goes into town. There's a bunch of rivers, a bunch of creeks, stuff like that. And that mixed with the wind really did a lot of damage. So basically the storm just dumped trillions of gallons of water that just swelled all the waterways. The wind knocked down trees. There's a lot of old trees around here. And then it just kind of knocked everything out. So I was up the night of the storm, just kind of monitoring it, and then woke up early in the morning and I knew my power was going to go out. But when I did wake up and tried to, you know, go on my phone, see what was happening, there was just nothing. There's no internet. There's no cell service. I couldn't get in touch with anyone. And it was the most bizarre feeling because we all knew that this huge thing had happened and we also just had no information. There was, you know, unless you could walk or, you know, if you could drive, there were so many trees down that driving wasn't really an option. You basically could only talk to your neighbors. And so,
Wow.
yeah, it was weird, man. It's like, it's honestly like a feeling I don't think I've ever felt before, just like, especially because, you know, we're all so connected via the internet, you know, via our phones, whatever, just like being in this moment where you don't have any power, you know, you don't know if the water is safe or you don't have water at all. You don't have internet, you don't have your cell phone, and you just walk outside and try to evaluate what's going on. And I talked to my neighbors. My neighbors, I saw them get their car out and they left and came back. And I was like, have you seen anyone? Like, what's going on? And they were like, they had gone to a gas station up the street from us who had no power, no internet. The floor was flooded, but they were still selling beer for cash. And they were like, well, they're selling beer, but nothing is functioning.
God bless America.
Apparently there was a line out the door too. They were like, yeah, we were ankle deep in water. There was no power, no lights, but the beer is selling. um but
And I'm
yeah,
sure this being Asheville, it was a local craft brew and not
for
like
sure.
some like
Right.
macro shit. Like,
No,
you know.
shout out to the gas up on Haywood Road. Like they don't stop. They don't stop. It's a gas station that used to be a gas station. They don't sell gas anymore. It's just a convenience store, but they're awesome.
Your
um,
gas stations in Asheville are very artisanal. They have a lot of like just operative flexibility that I don't think gas stations in the rest of the nation have.
they're like a community hub for sure. Like everyone goes, you know, it's just everyone. Yeah. But yeah, so there was like, we were lucky. We got our power back on pretty early. I live right off of Haywood Road in West Asheville. It's in the city, you know, it's a pretty populated area. We got our power back on pretty early, but I mean, I know people who didn't get their power for like week, 2 weeks, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, we couldn't get in touch with anyone. And if you managed to find a spot where you could get data, you would text someone, and if they text back, you'd get like 20 of the same message because it's like your phone just kept trying to send, which like weirdly made it more eerie because it's like you're trying to have a conversation being like, are you okay? And then their response is repeating itself over and over and over again. Um, but yeah, I mean, the first day that me and my husband went out was the Saturday after, and because we were like, we have a couple friends that we need to check on. And so one of my friends lives down Haywood from me, able to check on them. They were good. And then another friend of mine lives all the way out in East Asheville, so opposite side of town. They're actually the master distiller for Etta Rhine distillery. That distillery got destroyed. Like, it's really bad. Unfortunately, I love their product, but yeah, they're hurting right now. But I went to go check on him, and when we got to their neighborhood, there was this massive tree in the way. And so I parked at this church and we had to go between all of these yards behind their house to like try to get to them to be like, hey, are you alive? Like, what's going on? That was the first time where I'd actually seen the damage that happened. And we had to pass over Patton Bridge, which is like this really huge bridge that connects West Asheville to downtown. And it goes over the River Arts District, which is right on the river. And seeing that down there really put into perspective everything that had happened, because that is an area of town that has so many small businesses, so many cool local things, a lot of artist studios, and it was just completely underwater. Like, there was nothing left. Like, there are whole buildings down there that are just not there anymore. Like, the foundation is there, maybe a couple of bricks, but nothing. And we had gone there on Saturday, so the river was still swollen from all the water, and it had just completely engulfed just an entire district of buildings and businesses. And I grew up in Asheville. I've been here since I was a kid. I've never seen that before. Really just blew my mind. I was like, I can't believe this has happened here. There was a coffee shop down there that my husband used to work at, and like we could see the building up to the roof in water. Yeah, just absolutely mind blowing to see that. It was bizarre.
Did you like in that moment pull the car over so you could look, or kind of like what was the reaction in the car as you were looking at this?
Yeah, so I didn't, just because like I'm trying to be a responsible driver even in like this, like, because going down the road, like we're going down a highway and there are cars that are pulled over that just have logs through them, because like cars that were parked there or whatever, like there are trees that are down, like I did not pull over. However, a lot of people had, and there were just lines of people across the bridges. There were two bridges that I crossed, one that went over the French Broad, one that went over the Swannanoa River, and so many people had pulled over to just look that they ended up putting cones up on the highway to be like, please do not pull your car over. Because there were just so many people. I mean, like, I get it. Like, it's just like, we've never seen this before. Like, the other bridge that I went over, that went over the Swannanoa River, is near a U-Haul facility, and there were shipping tankers and like semi trucks that were wrapped around trees because of the force of the water that had just pushed everything. They, like, you could see the tankers just like how they had gotten pushed, and then the force of the water so hard that they wrapped around the tree. Really bizarre sight, like absolutely insane.
So how do you even, I mean, I had you on here because you're a manager at a bar that I
Sure.
really enjoy. And this is a podcast about the bar and bartending industry. I mean, how do you, putting aside for a second, the very important concerns of like, how am I going to pay my bills? Like,
Right.
where's the money going to come from? Like, what is the damage to our establishment? Kind of how did you and your staff just sort of approach the psychological aspect of the place you occupy in
Sure.
that town, and your role as sort of your role as an oasis and a respite and a friendly face? I mean, because that's what we all are in this industry, right? Like we're there when people need to celebrate, and we're there when people need to blow off some steam. And you have to kind of be a fixed psychological point for people when they come into your bar, no matter where you are personally. So how do you even begin to approach that as people who run a spot that you clearly love? Like, what's your read on the staff and how they're doing, and how are you doing?
Yeah. So the biggest thing, the first thing was just making sure everyone was okay. And like I said, all communications were wiped out, like all of the cell towers, all the internet. So that was really scary in the first couple of days, because a lot of our staff doesn't live in the city. Like, for anyone that's not been to Asheville, the city, it's like a small town, big city feel. Like, it's bigger, but it's not huge. So you can get from one side of the city to another in like 15, 20 minutes. So the surrounding areas are very much like incorporated in the city, and they're quite a bit more rural than Asheville proper is, but not far away. And a lot of the staff does live in those rural areas. And so, I'm thinking immediately, like, are they okay? Is their house okay? It took a couple of days to get in touch with people, but luckily once they put up temporary cell phone towers around, and so you could get some coverage. It wasn't very good, but we were able to finally get in touch. So the first thing was just like everyone was trying to get in touch with each other and just make sure we were okay. And luckily everyone was okay. And all of our houses were okay, no one was hurt. So once we got in touch with each other, um, all of us were kind of just trying to figure out how to help. And I would say that's the case for, I think, everyone in the city, all of, service workers, everyone. Everyone just kind of jumped into action, which is very, it's very deep rooted in Asheville to be, focused on mutual aid and stuff like that. But I overheard, this is a grapevine. I overheard that the director of FEMA did tell someone that they've never seen a community response like they've seen here. Just anyone that was able to help just immediately jumped into action. Search and rescue was still going on. People jumped into search and rescue. My brother, he was working with the Cajun Navy to like cut down trees and free people. Static Age Records, which is right next door to us, amazing record store venue. They immediately became a distribution center and started like collecting stuff for distribution. And then all the folks on the staff, we just kind of jumped into volunteer roles, mutual aid, started working with organizations, and just, trying to do whatever we could to help the people that were less fortunate than us. Even a couple days after the storm hit, there were still people trapped in their houses, trapped on their roofs, especially in, like I said, in the more rural areas. Like, there was just so much damage, and none of us could take account for what was happening because we couldn't communicate. So you just kind of had to go out there and find people. And so, just trying to make sure people had water, trying to make sure people had food, doing all of that. And then for the staff at the Crow and Quill, we had an emergency fund of money, and we just immediately emptied that account and paid out cash for the staff. Because again, no internet, you can't use your credit card, you can't use your debit card. The only way you can actually buy anything was cash. So we just paid out as much as we could to the entire staff, and just trying to make sure everyone was able to feed themselves was a big thing. At that point, we weren't even really thinking about opening the bar, just because it just didn't seem possible at all. And it was it felt so similar to COVID in a weird way, even though, it's not. It's the only thing I can relate it to, right? Just, hey, this is a really widespread, huge, traumatic thing. We just have to be able to do what we can do. And then, yeah, I was able to meet up with everyone at my house one day, and we had just brought a bunch of beer and snacks and stuff from the bar, and just everyone came over to my house, and we just hung out and chatted, and it was just like such a good feeling to see everyone in person. And, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird to talk about because it's like, we've gone to it's been such an evolution of emotions, just from like the fear of not knowing to the fear of seeing everything that has happened, to wrapping your head around, okay, like, what do I do next? Like, how can I help people? Yeah, a lot of bars in town, just immediately transformed into mutual aid organizations. Whether they were backed by an organization or just doing it on their own, a lot of bars became distribution centers. A lot of bars became just, places where you could charge your phone was a big thing, because a lot of people didn't have power. I luckily did have power, so I kept just bringing people over to my house to charge their phones, hang out, sit in some air conditioning for a minute. there was no internet, so I was just playing reruns of the Osbournes, and that seemed to be a big hit.
That sounds very soothing, actually.
Yeah, no, people would just like, I'm playing the Osbournes, and everyone's like, hell yeah, like just sit down, charge your phone, watch the Osbournes.
Yeah, no, I'm like, what do I have on DVD? I'm like, I think I had a few like seasons of The Office, like maybe the OC is in there
I'm
somewhere. So
luckily a
like,
huge
yeah, a lot of
physical
like,
media collector, so I was set. I was like, what do y'all want to watch? I got you.
oh man, yeah, you were. Yeah, no wonder people were coming over to your house all the time. Like, oh yeah, can I need to charge my phone. What is that? Is it cool if I stop by?
For sure, yeah. Yeah, no, we did not open the Crow and Quill as a distro center just because it's kind of an awkward space for that, but we were able to donate a lot of stuff to Static Age. We took our espresso machine over there and set them up for a free coffee station and brought over a bunch of gray water and just like anything we could bring over to support the community. Because they were such a huge help in all of this. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was so funny like hearing you mention that it felt like COVID because this is giving me flashbacks to 4 years ago. And it was weird, like even coordinating this with you, because we did a ton of episodes here with like, you know, all these people who sort of sprung into action or were like running distro centers, like doing various like, you know, aid for out of work service industry people. Like we had an interview with the people who run hospitality for hospitals that were helping like first responders. And
Yeah.
talking to you now and in the lead up to this interview was such a bizarre thing because it was like in this one part of my inbox, like I was back in 2020 and then everything else around it was carrying on as normal, which was weird for me. I can only imagine that times a lot more for you.
Yeah, I still can't tell if it's just I keep comparing it to it because it's the only thing I have to compare it to, or if it actually is that similar, but it's just I keep even now, you know, it's almost a month into this thing and I keep having to remind myself that it's not everyone. It's just it's regional, you know, and that was the strangest feeling is when we were able to get internet again. Like when when they set up the cell towers, and we were able to just like, you know, it was shitty internet. It was like, you know, shitty phone data. It was barely coming through, but it was the first time I was like on Instagram or, you know, anything. And I was seeing so many people in the community doing like a lot of good work and like seeing everyone post. And, you know, obviously a lot of people were posting pictures of all the damage it had done. And then all of these other people who were just having a normal day. And it blew my mind because I was like, wait, like this isn't everyone. This is not everyone is dealing with this thing right now. And, you know, we're trying to file for unemployment. You know, we're not really leaving our houses. We're under curfew, which was another thing. We had a curfew that was 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So you're not supposed to leave your house, you know. And I kept, you know, my brain just kept being like, wait, like you're seeing people have a normal day on the internet. What's going on? A really good friend of mine that lives on the West Coast had reached out to me, and his mom lives in town and she's okay, but he was one of the first people to reach out to me being like, hey, are you okay? Is everything all right? And when I was finally able to get in touch with him, he said that he kept trying to explain to his friends out there how bad it was and they couldn't understand it. And that also he was not seeing very much news coverage of it. Which was just a crazy thing to hear. At one point, me and my husband went down to Charleston to get some supplies because his folks live down there and we were able to stay with them, get a shower, you know, and going to the stores to like get water bottles, get, you know, supplies, get gas cans to get, you know, bring fuel back up. Half of the people down there were like, oh my God, we're so sorry, you know, how can we help you? And the other half were like, what do you mean something happened?
A hurricane in Asheville? That doesn't sound right. Like
it was crazy. I went to an AutoZone because we were trying to find gas can. I didn't realize that there was the longshoreman strike happening. So people were already kind of hoarding stuff. And I didn't know that was happening. So it was actually really, really hard to find supplies. When we finally did, we were trying to find gas cans to bring fuel back up for like cars, generators, all that stuff, because nothing's coming into town. All of the roadways around town were shut down. And so they finally opened I-26, which goes down to South Carolina. And it was the only way in and out of the city for a while, because, you know, I-40 completely fell into the river. All of the roadways were just crushed. And so it was the only way in and out of town, but we were able to get to Charleston. And, you know, getting down that way, half of the gas stations had run out of gas because either people were, you know, hoarding it for the longshoreman strike, or they had managed to get out of town to bring it back up to Asheville. So for like 30 minutes, there was no place to stop. I actually I had a car in my driveway that we were not using, and we ended up siphoning the gas out of that car to get to South Carolina, because we were like, there's no way we can get gas in town. There's nothing here. So, you know, a quarter of the drive, there's nothing. And then 3/4 of the drive, we're in just like people having a regular day, and half of them are being so cool and being like, oh my God, like, let me help you, or like, hey, we're bringing donations up, whatever. And then the other half are just like, what do you mean something happened to Asheville? What are you talking about? It's just, yeah, I can't wrap my head around that.
That must be such a bizarre experience. I'm imagining, as again, like, it's the only thing I can compare it to, because the only thing that feels so disruptive on that scale is COVID.
Right.
And just I'm imagining how bananas it would be to be traveling, you know, like go on the road and get to like Indiana or something and stop for gas, and people being like, what virus? What are you talking about? Like that,
right.
That must be such a mind fuck.
I was talking to Casey, the owner at the Crow Quill, and they had gone to Charlotte to get supplies, and they went, stayed at a hotel to get a shower and stuff. They were buying like 6 cases of water bottles, just carts, you know, them and their partner, 2 carts full of water bottle cases. And they get to the checkout, and they said that someone there was just like, hey, where's the party at? Which is like hilarious because it's water bottles, right? And they're just like, yeah, I'm bringing these to Asheville. There was a hurricane. We don't have water. And they were just like, the person checking them out was like, shit, like, shouldn't have said that. But it's also like, come on, like, you know, this, like, I don't know. The awareness is kind of weird.
Yeah. So like, what are you like, what have you got going on for your staff right now? Like, how, first of all, I'm glad your staff it sounds like everyone is safe and well and well accounted for, and, you know, thank God for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what are some next steps? What are you all doing is the bar back and operational? If not, what are your plans for it? And is there anything that our listeners can do to help support you and your staff and other people in the area in the meantime?
Yeah, so we are not fully back up yet. The biggest thing right now is most people have gotten power, internet, stuff like that back. But again, you know, we were not prepared for the force that this hurricane had, and it completely wiped out our water system. So there are, you know, you can find images online of it, but it almost looks like someone just, one of my coworkers called it the finger of a divine toddler just like scraped through the ground. But it literally looks like a tornado just took out the ground, and it just completely wiped out the water system. So as of right now, they were able to connect some of the water pipes and pressurize them for flushing, because that was a big thing. We couldn't flush our toilets. There was no water. That was not fun. So they did pressurize the water for flushing toilets, but the water is completely unsafe. So there is no potable water available anywhere in the city. So, you know, we're doing water bottles, camp showers. You know, everyone has jugs of water on their sink just to wash their hands. Basically, the only thing you can use the water for is flushing a toilet, which I'm thankful for being able to flush a toilet.
It's not nothing.
Yeah, no, I am very thankful for that, but it is, you know, there's a lot of things that you have to think about when your water is not potable. And I've never had to use the word potable so much in my goddamn life that I have. Like, I think about that word all the time right now. But so we did open the bar Friday and Saturday of this week, just, limited capacity, just basically to figure out how to do it. So we packed our freezer full of gas station ice. We got a bunch of water bottles. We got a jug of water we have a 3-sink. So we were able to wash dishes with potable water. But yeah, I mean, you don't think about how much you need water until you don't have it. Especially being in a bar too, like, a lot of people reached out to email to see if we were okay, asking, are you going to open? Why don't you just sell shots of whiskey? It's like, we have to have toilets and wash hands and wash dishes and, all this other stuff. We have to have ice, how
So
are
much
we going
stuff
to
that
do
you
this?
just don't think about, right?
Right. I remember there was me and Casey met up for a meeting. We sat at the bar and we were like, how can we open? Like, how do we do this? And we talked for probably 2 hours about just what do we do for bathrooms? Like, do we get a porta potty? Do we bring in buckets? Like, what do we do? And we're just trying to figure out a way to have functioning bathrooms, because you can't have a bar without functioning bathrooms. Like, that's just
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And as we're talking about this again, we're like 2 hours in, being like, how the hell do we do this? Casey nearly jumps over the bar, and I'm just like, what are you doing? Casey's like, be quiet, be quiet. And it was the water dripping out of the faucet, and they had pressurized the water system for the toilets. And I was like, I cannot believe this just happened. Like, this is absolutely insane. So yeah, that's really the only reason that we were able to open for a couple of days. But yeah, I mean, we want to be open for Halloween. We want to do this stuff, but being in there and having to just be creative about everything we're doing is really, really hard. Like, it brought up a lot more problems that we're going to be seeing. Um, and some other bar owners in town had come in when we opened up and, bought a couple drinks here to support. And then immediately we're like, I need to know, what are you doing? Like, how are you doing this right now? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know. Like, we're kind of just guessing here. Like, we're kind of just coming up with solutions as we go. So I don't know when we're going to be able to actually open and actually, bring all of our staff back, which sucks, because I know, no one wants to be on unemployment. No one wants to be just like waiting for, there's nothing, there's nowhere anyone can work. There's not in a town like Asheville, where the service industry is such a big industry. Almost everyone's in bar and restaurant, and like, without clean water, there's almost nothing you can do. Um, yeah, I have no idea when we're going to be able to open up again. I don't know when water is going to be safe again. We're not getting estimates for it. The damage was huge. So we're just kind of trying to figure it out on our own. But yeah, I have no idea.
Well, I want to first of all acknowledge that fucking sucks, and I'm really sorry you all are having to deal with that. That's got to be. I mean, in addition to the stresses that has to put in your business, that's got to be just so stressful for everyone in your daily lives as well. Like, so many extra steps that you have to go through where before you would just turn on a faucet.
Right.
That is. So are there any resources that you can point people towards that are out there to help? Because as you mentioned, Asheville is a really, really big destination for tourists. It really punches above its weight in terms of the high quality of the bars and the restaurants there. What are some resources that people can go to help out folks that are in this limbo stage right now?
Yeah. I think I mentioned this earlier, but like, one thing about Asheville is that, the community here is really tight knit. Like, you've mentioned that. not even just service industry, but the service industry community too. It's just like, everyone is here to support each other. Everyone's in the same boat. Like, we're just really here to help each other out. Static Age Records, they just put up a GoFundMe. They immediately turned into a distribution center. Amazing people have done a ton of work. They have a GoFundMe up. I highly recommend supporting them. Pansy Collective, they are also a local mutual aid group. And they're doing a bunch of work for service workers. They've been, coordinating. They've been bringing in supplies for people. Beloved Asheville is another one. They are a nonprofit that have been, helping out with the housing crisis and houseless folks and stuff for years, and they immediately were just like on it. They, supplied water. They've been supplying food. They've been able to give people, people who have lost everything, like blankets and stuff, because it is starting to get cold here. And then for, the surrounding areas, ROAR, WNC, so WOARWNC, they focus mostly on the surrounding areas of Asheville. But it's really important because those areas, as hard as it hit Asheville, a lot of the smaller towns that it did hit aren't getting as much coverage. Chimney Rock, Lake Lure, Black Mountain, Swannanoa, even Hendersonville, like those, they got hit really hard too. But people were focusing on Asheville initially. And I think it's important to also recognize that all of these surrounding areas, like all of our folks live in those surrounding areas. All of those places are important. And some of those places are kind of almost gone now. Like Chimney Rock and Lake Lure in particular had their own like small tourism industries, a lot of gift shops, restaurants, bars, stuff like that. Those towns got almost completely wiped out. There's nothing left. You can see aerial footage of it, and it's terrifying. I'm glad that, we have a lot of people, took action and are safe and are rescued and stuff like that. But the amount of businesses and houses and people who are gone is just kind of insane. It's going to be a really, really long recovery, which is tough to think about. But luckily, like I said, all of those organizations, all of the people helping, like, locally focused, locally made mutual aid and nonprofits are just awesome here and have been doing so much work, and those folks deserve as much help as possible.
Yeah, we'll put a link to all of those organizations you just mentioned in the show notes. And Danny, my heart goes out to you and to your staff and your family and everybody else affected by this. I think especially because people don't really have a sense of the scope of how bad that this damage is, and hearing about it is really truly, it's horrific. It sounds horrific. I'm sure it's horrific to live through. So, best, keeping you and yours in my thoughts for the foreseeable future.
No, I really appreciate it, man. I appreciate you doing this and chatting with me. I hope I'm not rambling too much.
Oh my God. No. This is information that people need to hear. Cause like I said, I don't think like you said, even in other parts of the same state, it doesn't sound like folks have a sense of the scope of how bad this was.
Yeah, it's, like I said, it's something that, up until now we thought never would happen. And, I think it's worth mentioning that, people need to be aware and need to recognize, that this can happen to anyone and that this is going to happen more because of the way that our world is changing. This is a product of climate change. This is a product of the planet warming up. And, our climate here in Asheville is way different than it was when I was a kid. And that's, there is no safe place when it comes to that. And that's scary, but it's something that I don't think people think about until it affects them directly, especially when you're in a place like Asheville where it could never happen, right? I think people should, do some research and be aware and be prepared and just try to support each other.
Amen. Well, I want to, we talked earlier about one big function of the service industry being to help people blow off steam in times of need. And this is still, even though I'm not regularly behind a bar anymore, it's still in my veins.
Absolutely.
Every time I go up to the bar, I always bring my empties with me. I can't not,
Yeah.
it's just like, once it's up here in your brain, you don't stop. And so I would like to help you at the end here blow off some steam. And I know that, we all have an election coming up, but you have an election coming up for governor. And I would like, if you want to just totally just, pull out all the stops, get all of your swears out. If you want to do 90 seconds on Mark Robinson right now to close,
Jesus
just
Christ.
to make yourself feel better. Just if you want to just get it all out of your spleen, like I would be happy to give you that safe space to do that.
It's like fucking insane that people are allowed to say that shit on TV. You know what I mean? Like, that's fucking crazy to me that people are allowed to say shit like he's saying. Yeah, what can I even say that he hasn't said already? Don't want to force this, but fucking go vote, please, dear God, go vote. Like, pay attention. Think about the people who are actually there to support you. Being in a town like Asheville, we're so focused on taking care of each other, but it is very important to think about the people representing you, as much as you hate the government or not. It's I don't even know what to say about that, man.
No, well, honestly, this is better than what I had planned. I was just going to let you get all your swears out, get all your motherfuckers out, so you can go about and be like calm and level headed for the rest of the day. But a clarion call is better. Yeah, go fucking vote. Like, who is in charge does matter for these sorts of things. And
absolutely, yeah.
With all the just whack job idiots that are on the ballot out there, like, those aren't the people you want in charge when the shit hits the fan. So
no, it's absolutely insane. I don't want to like tell anyone what to do, but like at least just fucking try to like pick someone who's gonna do something good for you. Like,
Google, just put the person's name into a search bar, and if what pops up is appalling, maybe don't vote for them.
Right.
That'll take. Do it while your tea is in the microwave, and it takes not a lot of time, and you'll do a little bit to make the world a better place.
If someone is saying that some people should be murdered, maybe don't vote for them.
Yeah, exactly.
In general, just
especially, I mean, in general, but especially if those people are civil rights leaders, like,
right. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. No, I'm early voting is happening here in Asheville, and with everything going on, I have seen a ton of people go out to vote, which is awesome. That everyone's, there's a lot of stuff going on, but especially being through something like this, it's like, all right, this matters. This matters a lot.
Yeah, that's good. Well, that's inspiring. And so are the efforts that you and the rest of your community are doing to get through with this. So thank you so much for joining us today, Danny. And thank you for telling your story so that hopefully we can draw some attention to this. And in the meantime, our hearts are with you and the rest of the people in Asheville.
No, I really appreciate it, man. It was really good talking to you, and like I appreciate you, hitting me up and talking to people that are on the ground here, because I think one of the last things I'll say is, the Crow Quill, we do have a Venmo going, and I can send that to you. It's at Harvey Crow. That is directly for the staff. Every penny from that just goes to the staff to help them out. But I know not everyone is able to contribute monetarily to these nonprofits or groups. Just spread the word about what's happening. Just if you hear about this or see something, like, share it with people, because awareness is huge. Just knowing that there are still a lot of people that don't know what's going on. If people hear this or see something else and are able to just, make their friends and family aware that something is happening and that people do need help, that's like massive.
Agreed. And we'll, like I said, all the links are in the show notes, and feel free to drop us a line here at the Speakeasy too if you want other ways that you can get involved and help. But for now, thank you so much for listening and tuning into this bonus episode. We're going to have a regular episode as per normal coming up in our feed next. But in the meantime, Danny, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck to you and yours.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So you don't shun the devil with your rock.
The Speakeasy is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food and drink radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.